Welcome to the Business Track with the Data Science Salon YouTube channel, where data science experts share their advice on how to successfully leverage AI and ML applications to solve business problems. In this video, you'll learn from Samrat Kulkarni, data science lead at CVS Health, about data science innovations to drive transformation in healthcare management. I hope you enjoy this presentation very much.
Hello, and welcome to my talk. Today I'm going to be talking about data science innovations to drive transformation in healthcare care management. So let me start off by introducing myself. I have a strong background when it comes to data science and analytics. This slide is essentially why you need to listen to me, and hopefully you'll learn something from me slide. A lot of my passion revolves around solving big human problems. I spent a lot of time at Bell Laboratories applying machine learning and data science to telecommunications problems. And today I'm focused on healthcare, which I truly believe is going to be the next frontier when it comes to applying data science to solve challenging problems. A couple of things I'll say here based on my experience. Certainly data science, people make career changes all the time, but data science is one of those fields where it's somewhat easier to do because a lot of the skills are very transferable across different domains. And I've certainly lived through that, having been in healthcare for a couple of years now. But the key there is to align ourselves with the right domain experts because there are technical skills around data science, but then in general, the notion of working with deep domain experts to understand the problem and craft the problem before we can apply any of these techniques. So that's where I'm today. I lead a team at CVS Health. It is truly an interdisciplinary team. We have folks like myself with a lot of industry experience. We have economists, statisticians, actuaries, medical experts, clinicians, and such. And truly, the mission of CVS Health is the common purpose there is to help people on their path to better health. So what I'll share in this talk today is going to be learnings and insights from the work that me, my team, and my collaborators have done in the past year or so. So in terms of the agenda for the talk, I'll start off with care management, basics and 101, if you will. I understand this conference has people attending from outside of healthcare, so this should provide a good grounding in terms of what I'm going to be talking about. And then we'll look at some of the innovations that my team has been doing in this space. Now, I specifically want to call out the word optimization, because a lot of the focus when it comes to data science seems to be around predictive modeling, machine learning, and so on, rightly so. But it's also important to think about what happens downstream to that. So going from prediction to prescription, if you will, and what is really actionable in the real world, because the end goal is to try and optimize some metric, some intervention, create some value. So it's important to also think of data science as a component of that drives value around optimization. And then specifically, I'll walk you through 3 case studies and share insights from the work. Now, unfortunately, we won't have the time to do a deeper dive, but hopefully this will give you a good flavor of the things that we've been doing when it comes to innovations, leveraging data science in healthcare care management. Okay, so let's start with care management, what it's all about. Essentially, care management, primarily, the focus there is to improve health while reducing costs for individuals. And the key word here is we do that in conjunction with healthcare providers. We are an insurance company primarily, but we deeply care about our members' health, and working closely with doctors' offices, primary care physicians, specialists, and so on. It's really a team effort here, and that's the scope of care management. So in terms of the high-level objectives here on the left, essentially we're looking to bend the trajectory for individuals. Examples of that would be, let's say, preventing unnecessary inpatient and ER visits, which are inexpensive, which are expensive today. Certainly in America, people that have experienced this can relate to that. And the other thing we look at is being very proactive in supporting and empowering members to improve their health. So a couple of examples there for illustrative purposes. We look at members with complex and rare diseases. So think about diseases like HIV, for example. So helping members manage their care journey, looking for gaps in their care, making sure they have the knowledge and the motivation and self-management skills. That would be an example of the objectives of care management. And then the spectrum ranges from complex diseases to also chronic diseases. Diabetes continues to be a big problem here in America. So to the extent that we can help manage members' conditions. So an example here would be nudges around medication adherence, for example, doing that in a optimal way. That would be the focus of some of the work that my team has and my collaborators have been doing. So let's talk about how this is actually done in terms of typical care management delivery modes. They can be high touch, and depending on the nature of the condition of the member. Now, you may hear terms called case management or complex care management. For this talk, they're all pretty interchangeable. So it's really about being efficient in terms of the touch and the delivery of the care management program to our members. So telephonic engagements are quite common when our nurses and clinicians call members and coach them on managing their health. And then with everything that's happening around digital engagement, depending on members' needs, we can also tailor the program to be self-directed and sending messages and nudges at the right time. So it's really a combination of all of the above. And we work with a number of different clients as well, including employer groups. So depending on their needs, we can certainly tailor the program. Okay, so with that, then where does data-driven analytics come in? So what are some of the components there? So obviously, we're lucky in the sense we start with a rich data foundation within CVS Health. As you may know, we have information from the retail stores, the medical side of the business, which is Aetna, the health care benefits provider, as well as our Caremark business around pharmacy claims. So it's a rich foundational data that helps us tailor delivery of the program to our members. And then we also have a robust external data strategy, partnerships with other vendors, for example, variables that are taken out from that people use. And then we're also serving other employer groups and sometimes helping manage conditions for other insurance companies as well. So being able to collaborate with them and getting the information about their members, that's something that my team does when it comes to data science. And then the last thing here is the skill set. Certainly data scientists like myself and my team, we don't have the rich clinical experience that physicians have. So the team is definitely an integrated team, a lot of insight, and I'll give you examples of how we've been able to partner with clinicians to solve some of these challenging problems. Okay, so with that, let's dive into 3 specific case studies and examples that my team has been focused on. So the first one I'm going to talk about is around return on investment optimization. So really the heart of what we're trying to optimize here is we want to make sure that the benefits that we provide to the member and our clients far outweighs the cost of doing so, right? So fundamentally, that's how at a high level ROI is calculated. And then the question is, what can we do with the data that we have to do this in a holistic way and really tailor it for each client or each member? So part of what we've been doing here is looking at member level heterogeneity. And there is no one size fits all. Every member has different needs. And to the extent that we can estimate, once we bring them into the care management program, what their clinical journey might look like, and then tailor the opportunity, or tailor the touch, I should say, to those members, we can optimize the ROI. So let me, and then the second example here would be around member engagement. Clearly, America, I mean, we're focused on serving millions of Americans. America is a diverse country with different needs and different biases. And so being able to deeply understand what those members' needs are and being able to tailor engagement and communication, that is critical to the success of care management. And I'll walk you through an example of us doing that here that my team worked on. And the third thing is around measurement. Now, one of the things I'll say, based on my experience in being in the industry, measurement tends to be not to be the focus, unfortunately. A lot of budding data scientists I see when they send their resume, or when they're doing Kaggle competitions, they tend to focus more around their skills when it comes to machine learning and AI. But really what I'd like to see, and this is more of a tip for young data scientists, is it's important to also think about measurement and having a robust measurement methodology upfront where you're able to quantify the benefit of the data science innovation. That is key. So again, just a tip, if you're sending me your resumes, make sure you think about measurement as well. That should not be overlooked. And I'll walk you through an example of work we've done in the space and some of the key insights that have come from that. Okay, so let's unpack this further. And before moving on, I'd like to bring up this slide that talks about the CRISP DM methodology. For those of you that have been in the industry, you should know this well. This is one of those methods that has been around for, I think, a couple of decades now, and it sort of ages like fine wine, if you will. I like to use this in my discussions with stakeholders because it highlights certain important things, and the framework is useful in communicating, especially to business stakeholders, in terms that are not necessarily familiar with the technical part of data science and expectation setting. So specifically, there are 6 steps here. I won't go through a lot of detail. You can look it up in the reference. But essentially, 2 main things to highlight. The fundamental nature of this process is iterative, so to the extent that we're able to show that we're going to be able to test and learn, and then depending on changing business objectives or availability of additional data, being able to rapidly iterate is one of the fundamental foundations of this methodology. And my boss likes to call that the snowball effect in some sense, because oftentimes before you can scale a solution, you need to prove the concept out on a certain set of the population. So for the purposes of this talk, just assume that in the 3 examples that I'm going to show you, we have applied this framework. So while we've done 1 iteration, if you will, we'll continue to iterate and improve. I'm not going to be focusing on a lot of these components, but just sort of give you a highlight around, especially when it comes to step number 4 in the machine learning modeling space, as well as model evaluation, number 5. There are other vendors and experts when it comes to DevOps and MLOps that we work with. and I'm sure that's being covered in the conference today as well. Okay, so moving on to ROI optimization. So just a recap here, the objective is to make sure we're able to understand given members at the member level, what their utilization and cost savings and health improvement opportunities are going to be. So the methodology here for us from a data science perspective, we have rich data, both on the medical and the pharmacy side. So all of these data sets obviously are normalized. We look at various features for a given member, from demographics to their disease states and care plans and so on. In terms of the modeling itself, a lot of the work was done using open source packages, and then typically, these are run-of-the-mill models. So when it comes to this specific example, one of the things we had looked at is for a given program year, which is typically a calendar year, what would be a given member's cost basis and cost trajectory, if you will. And that's what I call the static model. But some clients also give us month-to-month data. So we have the ability to use certain time series methods, which is what we've been looking at, recurrent neural networks, for example, and being able to project these costs. So some of the insights here on the right that have come out of this work are the following. So the first thing is, when you look at health risk models, so you can consider these as risk models, which essentially tell you how likely a particular member is going to use the healthcare system. There are general off-the-shelf models, both that have been developed in-house, primarily by actuaries, and vendors come to us with solutions around this all the time. But one of the things we've seen is, to the extent we can build a custom member level risk model that is customized for a certain cohort, those outperform the general models. Because if you think about, so for here, this specific example, if you look at a population that has a set of rare diseases, then using a general risk model applied to them would generally bucket all members into that sort of high risk, high cost category. But to the extent we can tease out just and train a model based on members with these rare diseases, we found that the model performance outperforms the generalist model. So part of this is healthcare is certainly very complex. So being able to do this in-house and customizing the training data set, that's something that was one of the key insights that came out of here. The other thing I would, number two, is the work around AutoML. I know this is a big buzzword as well. A lot of the vendors tout their capabilities to do AutoML-based feature engineering, for example. In this case, what we found was when we work with clinicians and when we're able to collaborate with them and essentially craft certain features based on their decades of experience. So let me again take HIV as an example. So, members that are newly diagnosed with a disease, for example, may have a different cost and utilization trajectory compared to, let's say, HIV member that has comorbidities and, for example, depression and mental health issues. Now, trying to feed all of this data into the model and using AutoML techniques, that can be laborious. But what we found is working with clinicians to get their view on identifying cohorts of populations and handcrafting that as a feature, that saves a lot of time. And in general, the models that we've been able to generate, these models with handcrafted features perform pretty good. And AutoML still can't quite beat them, depending on some of the metrics that we've been using. So clearly the recommendation here is, work closely with your domain expert, in this particular case, clinicians, which is what we do. And it's important to do that very upfront in the data science process, so you don't waste a number of iterations trying out certain AutoML features. It's more productive to the extent that you can, involving clinician input from day one. Okay, so let's move to the second use case around engagement optimization. This is mostly from a marketing segmentation perspective and tailoring the communication, the messages to the members. So in terms of innovations here, one of the innovations that we found very useful and that we've been applying in a test and learn mode is around natural language processing. And in this particular example, to identify a member based on voice recordings that we have of that member and tailoring the communication to that member provides a lift, and it helps the care manager in improving engagement and retention. So in this example here, we're looking at tone analysis. So if you're able to augment a care manager's knowledge by saying that this particular member, for example, is sad, then that additional, they can tailor their messages and empathize with that member more. So some of the key insights here is certainly tone analysis that provides a rich source. I won't have the time to go into a lot more detail here, but certainly having that applied R&D mindset, taking some of these innovations around NLP, definitely consider that as you think about optimizing delivery of your care management program. The other piece of work that my team's been collaborating with other data scientists within our organization is around all the innovations, what's broadly classified as clinical NLP, right? And some of the use cases for care management are, for example, question and answering before a care manager talks to a member, to the extent they can get as much information about the member as possible. That would help them better prepare for that case. And a lot of this can actually be automated. We can, care managers can ask questions about history of the member, for example. Has this member gotten a flu shot recently? Right? And building a system that can understand that and get that information can save a lot of time. And again, in the theme of optimization, it would save time to that member and help them tailor that, or the care manager can tailor that program appropriately for that member. And then the third insight here, important, having clear considerations from legal, privacy, and security are extremely critical. And we work very closely with our legal and privacy teams and from day one to make sure we're following all the applicable laws. Okay, so let's move to measurement, which is the last piece of the case study. So the objective, again, here is to truly measure both the short-term and the long-term impact of care management programs. Now, one of the things in a big organization like CVS Health, you would imagine there are multiple care management programs focused on helping different dimensions of a member's health. And sometimes there's an overlap with the program. And the other thing is, as we're doing data-driven innovations and interventions, you're constantly upgrading the program. So the heart of measurement is to understand what is the benefit and the value that a particular care management program brings to a member, and then identifying the right program for that member. So in this particular example, we looked at two specific care management programs. In terms of the methodology now, a couple of steps here. So the first thing is, it's extremely important to think about how you're going to design your test and control groups right up front, because that's how you're going to measure that the lift that you're getting is truly from the program, as opposed to organically happening and dealing with biases and things of that nature. So a lot of the effort here, we have tools in-house to evaluate study power. It's important to do that right up front. The other thing in terms of the methodology is to think about tracking leading indicators and operational metrics. Now, as you can imagine, for a given member, depending on the disease and the intervention, it's going to take some time for us to see the true impact to that member. This is unlike the maybe the ad tech world where you can do A/B testing pretty rapidly. It's important. It's hard for us to do that rather in the healthcare setting. So being able to clearly define what quarterly metrics we can track and then leading indicators, that is critical as well. And it's important to do that upfront. And then the last thing, and this is the thing that gets me really excited, is we've been able to apply many recent innovations when it comes to causal inference methods. In this particular example, we used causal forests. For those of you not familiar with this, I would highly recommend look at some of the recent work done in the space. It belongs to the family of random forests, but you can do certain interesting things in terms of being able to do individual, or I should say, estimate heterogeneity for different groups at the individual level. And being able to use methods like honest trace to make sure you manage for bias and get your confidence intervals. So that's something that's been pretty exciting, and we've been able to do that in this for this specific use case. So some of the key insights here is as you set up the test and control, make sure you collaborate with data engineering and IT on day one. Don't wait too long in the process, because otherwise you have to go back and you've not set up your measurement process correctly. So that's key. And one other tip here that we found is sometimes a model like a causal forest can be quite complex. It gives you enough insights, but then when it comes to productionalizing those models, it might make sense to retrain what I would call model compression, if you will, into simpler methods that can be operationalized, which is what we did here. And then the last thing is it's critical to set up expectations with stakeholders, not surprising. So to the extent that you can look at certain operational metrics on a monthly or a quarterly basis, that is critical as well when it comes to the measurement process. Okay, so those were some of the insights. Hopefully you found these useful. I'm happy to take any questions, and then I'll end here by just saying we're actively hiring at all levels. So if you're interested, certainly reach out to me at my contact below. Thank you so much.
That was a presentation by Samrat Kulkarni, Data Science Lead at CVS Health, about data science innovations to drive transformation in healthcare management. If you found this video useful, make sure to subscribe to our channel below and learn more about AI and machine learning applications in different industries.